Hey everybody, welcome back to Couch for It. I'm getting over a cold, so I'm sure I sound amazing tonight. Anyway, I am, while the camera is on, Drew Tillman, and I am joined on this giant blue couch by my co-host,
I'm Valanda.
and my brain hurts. I'm here to tell you
See, I'm
that
sitting here
much.
thinking, do I let you continue struggling with your poor voice, or do I step in like, no, I'm gonna see how far you're gonna go before
You know what? You can't stop me. I am a juggernaut of casting. I'm here. Anyway, we're going to talk about episode 3 of Sabrina. Well, the chilling adventures of Sabrina, because I found out yesterday there's a movie called Sabrina, and then there's the
Oh.
Sabrina the Teenage Witch. We are doing the chilling adventures of Sabrina.
I think the problem we have is we always start with we're reviewing Sabrina, the Teenage Witch. I think if we start with we're reviewing The Chilling, then we'll remember that it's not the Teenage Witch.
That's the hope. That is the
We keep the
only.
hope alive. We may get it by episode 10.
Maybe, and then we'll be off onto something else. Actually, no. There's the holiday episode we have to watch before
Yes,
we
we
can
do.
wrap anything up. So, what were your second impressions of episode 3?
My second impressions of episode 3 were, oh yeah, it's this episode with that guy who I don't know the name of or what he was in.
I think I know who you're talking about too.
It's the lawyer, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, I've seen this man's face somewhere.
I don't know where he's from. I don't know who he is, but he's like, oh, he's that guy. Who's that guy?
Should I look him up? No, that's too much
Yeah,
effort.
too much note taking.
Exactly. Um, yeah, that's a good thing. My impressions of this were, wow, they went all out. They just put Satan in the courtroom together. Cool, I guess.
Yep, you know how we disdain lawyers? Stick him in a courtroom.
Just
That will
jam
make
them
this
together.
situation
It's
even
fine.
better. Yeah, yeah.
I also appreciate they in episode 3 they're like, what would be a cool idea for an episode? What if she got sued? Why?
Yeah, it really was one of those, like, huh? But I think this episode is almost intended to be like the lore dump for how the
I
witching.
think so. It's got to
Yeah.
be that. Although there are some. All right, before we dive into this, they take the whole witches are anti-society a little too far to almost a comical point in this because multiple times
Mm.
in the episode they say disorder in the court. You can't say disorder in the court and expect people to stop
No,
clamoring about. It's the word means what it means.
like praise Satan. I understand why you would flip that kind of saying. It's like, oh, thank the Dark Lord. Like, I get why you would use those phrases, but yeah, like, we'll
It's
get onto it because I have comments on those
yeah,
guys.
it's
And I,
just, I've got comments too. But yeah, like they take that to a comedic level of just like you can't flip this. You need to.
hmm hmm
Anyway, let's dive into the opening scene, which is we pick up where we left off, and Sabrina is running out of Principal Hawthorne's office because she feels sick because the Dark Lord took over his body, and she runs to the bathroom and throws up, and we get that classic horror thing of she washes out her mouth and or she's looking away from a mirror and then looks up and there's someone standing right behind her.
and it's the lovely Miss Wardwell, which to me was a little bit creepy. Like, why is what like yeah, we get she's a demoness. Like we know this. We know she's something that she's not supposed to be.
Mhm.
It's like a teacher suddenly appearing in the girls' bathroom, just out of nowhere. She would have no reason to walk into the bathroom at this point. She hadn't seen her. She hadn't like realized she'd gone by. What?
It's just weird. Also, why are you so close? Like,
Yeah.
don't approach someone that close in the bathroom. It's just weird. It's the one place where your your personal space bubble should just be
The biggest in the world.
yeah, like just because it's an uncomfortable place to be. Anyway, Miss Wardwell asks what she's like, what's wrong. It's a very short scene. Sabrina just kind of plays it off and leaves, and we cut to the Spellman place where Ambrose is coming into the viewing parlor, and there's just an iguana sitting on this casket.
His lizard's out on top of the casket.
Lizards.
I'm like a teenage child with this. It's just hilarious as hell. So he goes also picks up like, am I right in thinking even in this scene he's still wearing his like dressing gown?
Oh yeah, no, he literally only wears a dressing gown, with the exception of the scene and the funeral that's later. It's the only time he's wearing anything that's not just a dressing gown, some pajama pants, and a t-shirt.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, he picks up this iguana which is just sitting on top of the casket of the kid that had been murdered in episode 1, and he takes it into the kitchen. He's like, "Hey, aunties, how do you make someone else's familiar talk?" And they're like, "Nope, it's gonna die. You can't have a pet familiar. You're not allowed one."
And I like this scene because Zelda's like, "Oh, it's gonna die because it can't live without its master. Give it here, I'll kill it." And
Yeah.
Aunt Hilda can turn it into a purse.
That was my favorite bit.
He's just like, no.
No, it's so cold and so harsh, and it comes up to me like the idea of like, okay, so is the familiar gonna die because its master is dead and because it's one of those like house trained pet things, or what would happen to Salem? That was my thought. Like, oh, Sabrina, he's a different kind of thing.
I thought about that too, because they're not born when a witch becomes a witch. They don't live their entire lives bonded to a witch. So clearly when familiars bond to a witch, it's just like they can't go back to the life before that. It's witch is like cocaine or something to a familiar.
So for me, I'm thinking that little book they had before where like you can pick a familiar. It's like, are they just like baby orphans?
Oh
Just
God.
like a book of orphan familiars, and like, well, we've trained this one. You can adopt this baby one, and when you die, it will die too. I'm like, why would you enter into that? No, that's harsh.
It's real fucked up and weird, and I don't know. So then we jump back to school. This episode has a lot of like short scenes.
Yeah.
But we jump back to school where Sabrina is having flashbacks about the principal when her friend Roz shows up. And she's upset because she's found a banned book, which, that makes sense. She's upset that she got denied a book for her book report. And she's upset that it's a banned book.
Yeah, even though they technically don't have banned books, but there's a difference between saying these books are banned and actually not having those books available and saying, no, these things aren't. This isn't the correct literature for young, impressionable minds, I think the phrasing was. That happened a bit later.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, oh, they're doing access of information. Cool. Like, not all of these things should be confined to like, you shouldn't have... There should be freedom to access to what you want, and these kids are being denied it. So, the old adage of straight white dudes in like rich places can access information. No, give it to everyone. I think this is what this episode is trying to do.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and I think it does it real well, especially much later on. There's a little funny scene because she's sitting on the stairs when this happens, and Roz turns up, Harvey turns up, and their other friend turns up. Susie turns up. This is what I get for not having notes, even though I'm looking at them. I don't write anyone's names down. The friends turn up, and Harvey's like, that book is really cool. We should go to the principal and talk to them about this. And then immediately the girls cut across with like, we should make the Wicker group do it because that's what we do. And they immediately cut him out of the conversation. So he's literally up on a step away and behind the rest of the group, which I thought was like, oh, that's interesting. They're excluding him again. I don't like it.
I mean, it's not really fair to Harvey, but also he's apparently kind of a dummy, so
yeah,
he feels like that friend that like is around, but you don't always want that friend around.
It's like, oh, he's the boyfriend.
Yeah, honestly, I could see it being played off like that because he's the boyfriend and he's not a friend. But I do like because they go to Principal Hawthorne, who literally just sleazes his way out of admitting there are banned books. Because he's like, oh, we don't ban books here. There are just some books that are a little too mature.
And yeah, he, again, just, as you said, sleazes his way out of it. And whoever that is doing a great job of just giving me the creeps. Just like sleaze creeps, like, you're not scary, you're not freaky, you're just like, ugh, no.
Yeah, he's a slime ball. He's a slimy, gross white man.
Yeah.
I don't have a better way of describing him than that. So after this little conversation, Sabrina, Roz leads Sabrina and Susie to the library, and I'm assuming she pulls out index cards for the 3 books they named. So The Bluest Eye, Lolita, and
Don't remember what the other ones. There was like a little collection. I think they take up more than those books that they mentioned there.
yeah,
Because they come up with a little stack of cards, and I like the intro for this scene because like there's Roz at the front doing like the proper power walk with her 2 friends behind her. I like how they switched the spotlight here from what could be a really heavy like Sabrina story, and like I'm gonna stand up and do this for my my gal pals, and they don't. They give it to Roz, who actually deserves this storyline of her own on there, and they just like, right, we're gonna follow her. She does, like, to be fair, it's like really typical power walk where like her 2 friends are standing behind her, like throwing open the doors of the library, like,
oh yeah,
let's get to the library, get the books. And yeah, they get these cards out, and they find that these books aren't there, and they go over to the librarian, who's this little old lady who leans over conspiratorially like, they took the books.
yeah, pretty much that's what she said. They took them.
Don't tell anyone, but they purged the books.
They purged. The
It's that
bad
proper like
books.
conspiratorial manner of like, yeah, I don't agree with this, but hey, I work here, paycheck sort of thing. It was like, it was a really kind of cute little kind of, oh, okay. Other people have seen that this isn't right too, but they're not doing anything or can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, in the standard way of like teenage stuff, adults tend to be powerless,
Mm-hmm.
and then teenagers are the ones who solve all the problems because we want teenagers to feel and understand that they can change things.
They are our future. They can change our future. We're just all too stubborn and set in our ways.
Exactly.
We need an equivalent for like 30-year-olds, Drew. Where like teenagers are idiots and the old people are the set that like the old people.
Oh, that's just called
equivalent of their 30 people.
That's just called standard TV, Rolanda.
It is. I don't watch a lot of TV.
Okay, well, in standard adult television, children are stupid.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
But Sabrina goes home and she finds out she's been summoned to infernal court. And there is a fucking, like, crazy letter that's, like, wax sealed and everything. And
Yeah, Auntie has this like, it sounds like some sort of parchment with like this clearly ornate looking top on there, and there's like scripture, hand scripture written on there, and it's like, what the? And she's like, you've just been summoned. And Sabrina's comment a bit later on is like, I'm being sued.
and
That's exactly what I was like. What where did this come from?
and when she said that, I was like, that feels like she's really dumbing this thing down. But no, she's legitimately just being sued. Like, it's not like she's being tried as a witch or whatever. She's literally just being sued. She's being sued and going to court to pay quote unquote damage.
Yeah. So in like the whole thing comes about because apparently she promised to sign the Dark Lord's book and she didn't because she ran out on her dark baptism. Mm-hmm. So now she's being taken to court for breaking a promise, and she's like, I didn't make I never said
I wasn't involved in this. And then you find out Aunt Hilda and Aunt Zelda are being sued as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they've had their powers stripped from them until this whole mess is figured out. So they're dying.
So I have a comment on that a bit later on. So we need to remember the fact that they've had their powers stripped. They're getting older. And because they're technically Sabrina's legal guardians, her actions are their actions. If you want to believe that, sure. But this is witch law, so it could be. It's magic, Drew.
It's witch's law.
Witch's law.
They say witch law so much it makes me laugh.
They do. Like, this episode is basically, I think, kind of devoted to, here's the moral quandary of, is she or isn't she a witch? Is she or isn't she human? Is it possible she could do both? And then they make the decision. I think that's basically this. And to learn more about, like, or set up whatever is coming on later in the series of like, well, we need to have this precedent here to explain why this makes sense later on. Yeah. I kind of get that feeling from this, but it doesn't mean that this episode is a bad one. I kind of like it. It's kind of dumb.
No, it's a good, like, all right, I'm going to put it in RPG terms. It's a good, like, between session, like, between big storyline sessions where it's just like, oh, we're going to court. It's like, well, this is dumb, but, like, it's entertaining.
Yeah, it's entertaining and dumb. Yeah. So at this point, I would like to point out that Sabrina says some things she says like three very specific things. She will not sign her name in the Book of the Demon. She will not go to the school place, and she will not stand trial, I think she says. She has these three very, very definitive things, which are important because at least two of those get broken by the end of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
And it cuts to Ambrose's room, which it took me a minute to figure out. This is Ambrose's room, and she's telling Ambrose, "Oh, I need help. Like, what do I do? How do I handle this? Blah blah blah." And he's like, "Oh, well, there's a lawyer that you could contact. He's immortal. He knows all about witch law, though, and there's a rumor he has beaten the devil. Fun fact: he lives in Greendale."
Oh, and by the by, all coincidence is because magic.
Yes.
And we actually find out why those coincidences are in such a line out a bit later on in the episode. But so yeah, so he hands over this card, and she's like, "Okay, cool. I guess we better go visit the old man."
Yep. And before we do that, we go see Zelda, who's visited Blackwood, and honestly, she's clearly trying to weasel out of having lost her powers. Like, she's very clearly being like, "Oh, can't we work something out? Like, we don't need to go to court. Like, you know that I'm loyal," and like, just like, come on.
It's like you, me, the Dark Lord.
The Dark Lord.
I have to say, like this room that he, because he's the High Priest, he's got this like really ornate, old kind of like witchy looking room. I don't really know how to describe it. Like everything's lit by fire. He has this big ornate desk, these big ornate chairs. It's all dark and red, and it's a really beautiful, dark and horrible, foreboding looking room. And I just love the fact that in this room, like with all these lights on, like she's just trying to seduce him in the manner of like, "Hey, you, me, bottle of wine," except Dark Lord. And he basically says, "Too many wheels are in motion. This is sorry, it's too late.
Too late. Bad things are gonna happen to you."
And this is where we find out the aging thing really is happening, because he reaches out and like is basically doing that kind of like creepy, like vicary feel of like those dodgy ones. You don't really want to like abuse their power, and he totally does this. I mean, he is supposed to be evil, so I get it, but like he totally abuses his power and reaches her face and pulls his hand through her hair, and a clump of her hair comes out. I'm like, oh, gross.
I do appreciate the fact that she takes it back from him.
She takes back the main clump, realizes that there's still some strands left on his hand, and takes those too.
I do appreciate that fact that she's like, "No, this is mine, and you could do magic with it, so I'm gonna take that with me."
Yeah, these are going to be mine. But that's not the end of the scene, because as she leaves and the door closes, we see the silhouette of Miss Wardwell appearing. And he's basically like, "Don't be a perv, stop watching me."
Stop watching, you freak. And this is where we learn that she's a straight up actual demon. She's not a witch, she is a demon.
Yeah, and I think it's here they have that rather interesting conversation of how she failed to get Sabrina to sign the book, and he also failed to get Sabrina to sign the book.
Yes.
I think that's this scene, right?
It is the scene, because she says, well, she got Sabrina to the baptism, to the altar, but he failed to get her to sign the book. And he's like, well, you failed to get her to sign the book. It's a very childish finger-pointing game.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it's this scene when he basically has... This is where we have, I think, the battle of the sexes scene again. Where basically he basically has a go at her methods because she's a subtle manipulator. That's the way she does things. She's well, I think he says he's the hammer.
Yep.
Here's the hammer, and he's going to nail this into place. And she's basically like, yes, you're a little blunt, I guess. And then goes on to point out that yes, she may be in the body of a woman, and she may well, his phrase is that she only has the will of a woman. Clearly things aren't going to get done. And she reminds him that she's not actually a woman, she's a demon who feasts on the flesh of males. And there's a very pointed, like, probably going to eat you comment there. I appreciated it. It was that very... I liked how they showed the two very different methods, but I didn't quite like how they assigned it to gender in this. And I really hope that comes to bite someone back in the ass later.
I'm sure it will. Like, I mean, the show's clearly being geared towards to handle that sort of commentary. So I'm sure it's gonna come up and resolve itself in a spectacular fashion.
I hope so, because there's a lot of there's a lot of comments up to this point on the demon being male, sorry, the devil being a male, and him not allowing this, and women having to do these things, and like we don't have these powers, and we're seen as something else. I hope this has a really good conclusion that's satisfying, and actually equal, not just one way or t'other.
No, I agree. I hope. Yeah, I'm hoping it ends. Hoping it ends in a way that makes me feel like a good thing happened, and not just
not just man bashing.
Yeah.
And this is where my notes run out.
Well, after that, it shows Sabrina going to the lawyer's house, and it's a man named Daniel Webster. And she's like, I need a lawyer. I've been sued for breach of contract. You know about witch law. And he's like, yeah, breach of contract's real tough. Anyway, get the fuck out.
Yeah. And she's like, quite obviously like, what? And then we cut back to inside, and he like basically grabs a glass of whatever it is, walks over to a picture on the wall of this young girl in I think it might be a drawing, it might be a really old photo, and basically looks real sad. Mm-hmm. And then you just get that like, oh, he's probably actually gonna help her.
He's gonna do it. Which also, I'm gonna start the next set of notes, and then I'm gonna say a comment. So then we cut to Harvey's house, where he and his brother are hanging out in Harvey's room. Now, I have a quick comment to make about just everything in Greendale. Clearly, it's a horror show, so all the lights and stuff are, every room is pitch black with the exception of their lighting points. So, a bulb here, a bulb there kind of thing. But every building in Greendale also looks like it's ramshackle, as if everyone in Greendale is squatting in some sort of ruin. The only building that doesn't look like that is the school, and the school looks like it's from the fucking 60s. Like, the decorations and stuff they have up look really dated and old.
Yeah, like, I could get that, yeah, like, all the houses in here, basically, like, they have, like, a light bulb on. Mm-hmm. Like, one light bulb, or they're lit by candles. No place is, like, for example, like, I know we're on stream and people on the podcast aren't going to be able to see this, but, like, Drew's room is really bright. It's really cheerful. It looks like a modern place you would live in because it's really good lighting in there. However, I am lit only by my monitor, and it's just like one glaring point. It's not bright in here, and this is how it looks in basically all of the houses that aren't the school.
Yeah, and the houses and stuff even have sort of, and I'm going to use your background here, like you have the background that's like baffling, and then you have like a curtain, and they have backgrounds like that where like one wall will be like a really dark wallpaper, but then the next wall will be just unfinished board.
Yeah, there's so much going on in the set design and the background of this. It doesn't always look like a home because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
Like if you take, like, if I walk out there, like most of my walls are bare apart from some posters, and that's what you expect modern homes to look like.
Yeah.
But everything looks like my booth.
Yeah, everything looks like that, and there's just like random paintings or sketches or random trash on the walls. It's a very interesting set design, but it was just a thing I was like, are they all squatting secretly? Is Greendale a town that's a secret? Anyway.
So I think what picks this up is that Harvey is, we're in Harvey's room, and Harvey, we discovered over the course of like the 3 episodes, is a really good artist. And I want to point out the lighting in this, because if he's an artist and he does a lot of things by hand, boy, does he need some better light.
His eyes are going to be so tired all the time.
Hurt so much. But major props to the art department, because those drawings up on the wall, holy Hannah, they're good.
Yeah.
Jim, very good.
Clearly, Harvey he's an amazing artist.
Yeah, talented. So he's having this little conversation with his brother about, I think, working at the comic store or the comic
cafe. Yeah, he says he showed his art to the guy at the bookstore, and his brother's like, the vampire dude? He's like, yeah, Dr. Cerberus. And he says I could do posters for him and maybe work on the weekends.
It's so good. And so it's like, oh, is he actually going to turn out to be a vampire or what? And we're going to find out on that one. So he's there, and they discuss about the fact he can work there on the weekends, and their father turns up, and their father is like, you are not going to go work at this kind of, I don't remember the phrase he used, but it was really not a good one.
I think he says hanging out with a pervert who likes to play dress up.
There we go. I mean, to be fair, it's a legitimate concern the father must have. Like, oh, he dresses like a vampire and works in a bookstore. That may ring alarm bells for me too.
It's a little weird.
It's a
Not to
little
say
weird.
he's a
I'd like to
bad
go
guy,
check it out
but you
first.
know,
Yeah,
you want
as a
to
parent, I'd go check it out first.
exactly. You
Sure.
want to vet this guy first. Like, let me
Yeah.
see what Doctor Cerberus is all about.
But his father doesn't even give him the time of day on that. He basically says, "Oh, now you want to work? You can go down the mines." And Harvey's face is like,
Right.
"No, no, 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 no."
This scene amounts to Harvey being like, "Ah, yeah, thank you for liking my art, brother. I think I might be able to find a job." And then their dad from the other room hears job, and he's like, "Fuck you! You work in the mines."
You're mine now.
It's like, where were you again? This is like altered carbon. Were you just standing outside the door? What were you doing?
Waiting for the perfect moment.
They're gonna talk about jobs in a minute. I know it.
Do it. So yeah, we then find out that Harvey is going to go start a shift down the mine. And he doesn't seem too happy with that. And
seems-
Tommy looks worried.
Yep.
Concerned for his little bro.
I don't blame him. After what
Yeah.
we find out later, and then we cut from this scene to the infernal court, which is in an old church, which is decorated like a fucking Greek temple. I don't know. This place is a mess. But
It's a mess of different ideologies. It really is.
is.
It is properly like this old like white painted church, like the really simple ones, and it's covered in like vines and it's broken and there are things plastered over the exterior walls, and I think there's something written on the front of the church door as
I
well.
think
But
so.
I could never pick out what it was. And they go inside, and yeah, it's like pews, and it's dark, and it's covered in leaves, and there's only firelight naturally.
Candles.
There are like
yeah.
candles, there are these statues, and like basically any of the weird witchy people we saw from the cover, including the Weird Sisters,
Mhm.
are all basically sitting in these pews.
My personal favorite thing, though, in this whole mess. So it's set up like a courtroom with the pews in the back, and then there's like two defense tables. But on one of the defense tables is just the head of a marble statue that has broken off. That someone clearly just went, yeah, whatever. And it's just laying on this table. No one moves it. No one addresses it. It's just there.
Yep, it's just there sitting on the head of a table. And then we basically see, I think at this point, the three judges, the three dishonors,
The
sitting at the back.
Infernal Three, or their
Oh, the
dishonors.
Infernal Three. They're dishonors.
They are
Sitting
thirsty.
the back of the thing, and they're on these kind of like throne type chairs, and they're wearing these like kind of robes with like pointed tops, and you can like see their faces, and I think they're like sewn shut, their eyes and their mouth or something.
One has eyes that are sewn shut. I think they're. You only see a couple of them up close for a minute, or you see like two of them up close for like a minute. One of them has like no eyes. I assume if you saw the other ones, they're probably supposed to look like the fucking see no evil, speak no evil, see hear no evil.
Yeah, I got that feeling too, but they are real. Like, props to the freaking makeup department. They are freaky, horrible looking mofos. I get it, but also, you know, they have really cool sounding voices. But oh, the dialogue, my God, guys. It really is the thing what we were saying earlier. It's that cheesy, like, you know, dishonor in the court. Like, these are your dishonors, and they've just flipped words around to give them like alternative negative meanings, but they haven't actually changed what we want them to mean. Like, they want order in the court and they
Yeah.
call for discord. I'm like, that's only going to make it worse. How is this?
It's
No.
not good. Stop that. It's not funny. It's not interesting. It just becomes comical after a certain point.
And it really is like this whole. Like, I don't know if it's because I find the guy that plays Webster funny, or whether it's because the dialogue is so cheesy, or because things in this scene genuinely just look like that typical, like, courtroom, but satanic, and everything has to be flipped on its head just because. I don't know, like this whole those scenes in here just always just gave me like the this is not good. It's kind of trashy dumb, and if I take a really big step away or I'm getting dressed at the time of watching it, it can be kind of fun. But like the first time around watching this, it just was like, oh no, why?
There were some problems with it. Although, props to the bailiff, who is this weird Cenobite looking guy with a muzzle.
Oh yeah.
Like, just stand. You see him in the background, and he says like one line, and it's just him just being there is great.
Yeah, props to all the background stuff in this. It's just the dialogue in this scene, basically I think all these scenes in here, just like all of them are just they're not good.
It's stilted and weird. It's not the best dialogue. It kind of feels like someone taking a stab at writing a courtroom scene for the first time, but they've never written a courtroom scene, but now they have to write like an opposite courtroom scene. It's kind of a mess. But
it's not that it doesn't work. It kind of does in the context of how this series is, but I'm gonna say it's not their finest moment.
No, it's not. But they ask Sabrina how she pleads, and right before she says, "Oh, I plead guilty" or whatever, the doors burst open, and Daniel Webster comes in and says, classic courtroom, "She pleads not guilty. I wasn't here earlier, but for some reason everyone should listen to me now."
I've turned up at exactly the right moment. I came from the villain school of when to turn up, except I work on the good guys.
They do it twice in this episode. That's too many times for a single hour-long episode. We'll get to that, though. But they argue with him. They're like, "You're not welcome here, and you're uninvited." And he's like, "No, my client is here, so I can be here." And then it cuts outside, and we find out that Daniel Webster was taught witch law by Sabrina's dad, and he made him feel good and gave him hope, and now he just wants to return the favor to Sabrina in this hopeless moment.
And thus, we find out why he's actually in Greendale.
Exactly. And then it cuts back into the court, because again, this episode's made up a lot of cuts.
Yeah.
Cuts back into the court, and Blackwood is being creepy and weird, and he's like, "You were gonna marry the Dark Lord. You were courting the Dark Lord.
She's
you
like,
ran
what?
out." They bring up that wedding dress, which I feel bad for Hilda, because they bring it up, and Sabrina looks at her, and she's just like, that probably wasn't the best option, I guess. Which also, there's a side note here that it made me laugh so hard. Like, I was watching it. At 19 minutes and 25 seconds in this episode, there's a shot of Sabrina up on the witness stand, which is clearly just the pulpit. And there's the three infernal people, the infernal ones, the dishonors. And the one on the far left sticks his tongue out to wet his lips. And it just looks really funny because it's just in the background, and he's like... And I was like, you guys probably should have caught that and gotten rid of it.
Boy, I want to go back and see that.
Go watch it. It really breaks the whole scene because it's supposed to be really tense, and then just this dude licks his lips in the background, and it's not creepy. It's clearly just somebody who's like, "My lips are really dry."
I was like, "Yeah, this is uncomfortable."
He's like, "My lips are dry. No one's gonna notice if I lick them."
Oh, that's amazing.
It's really good. But. And Webster's like, "Oh, there was no contract. There's no signature. If you want to talk about a marriage, where's the marriage license? Where are the blood tests? Where are all these other things?
Where's the groom?" And he's like, "None of this, no case," and basically walks off. And this is when Faust basically stands up, the high priest stands up and said, "Well, here you go." And they open the book and they make Sabrina read it out because it's way more dramatic too.
Of course.
Read out her name in the Book of the Beast.
But it's only dated 3 days after she was born.
And he's like, "You really expect us to believe a baby signed the book?" And this is where Faust goes, "Well, we better call Auntie up to the thing, just to drive home how horrible this situation is."
And we find out that Sabrina was taken into the woods 3 days after she was born by her father and Aunt Zelda, and her father signed her name into the Book of the Beast. And there's the appropriate dramatic pause, and people freaking out, and just like, "Ha-ha, we've clearly won this." And it cuts back to the Spellman house, where Sabrina is very righteously mad as fuck.
Yeah, she's mad AF. And basically, it tells Auntie that she betrayed her, that she could have said that this name was in there, and why on earth did her father sign her away?
Like a used car.
So good.
Poor Sabrina. Although I also do like the fact that Aunt Hilda's laying on the couch being fed by Ambrose because she's very old at this point.
Yeah.
Very old and weak. Sabrina's pissed off. She's like, "You guys, this explains all the stuff you were doing, why you were trying to strong-arm me into doing this, because my name was already in there." And Zelda was like, "Well, you weren't supposed to find out." And she's like, "That doesn't make it better." And then she, storms off. And she's exactly right. That doesn't make it better.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you were supposed to choose this thing on your own. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, you're supposed to have the freedom to choose what you worship and what you don't, what path you take and what you don't in life. And it's like, just the fact that you weren't supposed to find this out, it's not okay. Which makes what happens later on even more unokay.
Yep. But then we cut to Webster, who's at his house, and he's doing lawyer work, I assume. I honestly don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, he's lawyering, whatever that means.
He's lawyering. And this young girl, who looks like the girl in the picture or painting or whatever, with the exception of her throat has been slit, comes up behind him and torments him. Is like, oh, you're going to come to hell, and you're going to meet me. Why did you let me die? This is all your fault. Fuck you.
And then it's like, Daddy, you're wasting your time looking after this Sabrina half-breed witch thing. And then it's blatantly obvious from that point she's not his daughter,
Yes.
whatever it is. And then we basically pan away a little bit so we can see her and see him, and she turns into Miss Wardwell.
Oh my god. And she leaves. And again,
And then she leaves, yeah.
end of another scene. Like, there's no pause on half of these scenes.
No. There was a thing that at this point made me go, oh, maybe that was instead. Wardwell taking the appearance of this like weird child thing of his. I had a thought that the reason she may have been in the bathroom so quickly and the reason she gave that look at the beginning is that maybe she had possession of the principal instead. Because that would make sense as to why she would suddenly be around, and her method is manipulation.
That's true.
That was my initial thought. Like, how would a normal human being be able to take the devil in him? Like, no, the thing would poorly die.
Probably. That would make sense if she took possession of him. Yeah. And the next day, Harvey and Sabrina are walking through the woods, and we find out why Harvey had that look of fear on his face about the mines. Because he tells her that he's going to have to work in the mines, and she's like, yo, you don't like the mines. And he launches into his story that when he was younger, or 8 years ago, he was playing hide and seek with his brother and his friends, and he went to hide in the mines. First of all, why are the mines not locked up? Why can you just walk into the mines? This is the second time someone just walked into the mines. But he got lost, and eventually he saw the Goat Man that we have seen several times. He saw the Beast wandering around down here.
Ooh.
Also, why is the Beast down there?
That's why he doesn't like it. I mean, the place, I think the girls mentioned before that it's called like the Gateway to Hell or a Mine to Hell or something along those lines. But it's like, oh, okay, maybe he probably did see the Goat Man down there.
He probably did. And they take the boys to that place they call the Devil's Lair.
Yeah.
So he probably did see the Goat Man down there. The Beast.
Yeah. So we're like, oh no, poor Harvey. But he's resigned to the fact that he's going to have to go work down there. That's just...
Yeah.
Can't defy his dad.
I feel really bad for Harvey.
Yeah, me too. Like, out of everyone, like, everyone has, like, some sort of angst or teenage sob story going on. But him I really feel for because it's normal problems, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people would have experienced at some point, which is your parents going, you need to get a job. And if they're in that kind of industry, like, you're getting this kind of job. And you're just like, oh, no, this is not for me.
I don't want this.
Yeah. It's a relatable problem. I think a lot of people could relate to. I'm like, oh, I want to
so.
hear more about this. So, and we do, thankfully.
And then they're at school, and Roz and Susie are handing out lists of banned books because who's gonna fucking stop them, basically? And Sabrina's like, hell yeah. And Roz is like, what's Hawthorne gonna do anyway? And he clears his throat. She turns around because guess who's behind her? It's fucking Hawthorne.
Of course, yeah. So the third example of coming from the villain school of turning up, just randomly turns up and basically says, we haven't banned anything, we're not banning anything, but your case will be reviewed at the PTA meeting tonight. You're welcome.
Right. I think his encounter with the spiders may have humbled him just a little bit.
I think they may have. They would have humbled me, and I feel very sorry for the fact he had to go through this. Also, he's been possessed by the devil at one point, or Miss Hawthorne, Wardwell. So either way.
Maybe he's humbled a little tiny
we can hope.
Tiny bit.
Yeah.
But we cut from that scene to the viewing of Connor, the poor dead boy. And Ambrose is finally wearing something other than his dressing gown, which is a suit that is the same color as his dressing gown.
It's exactly the same. It's so good.
And he notices there's a man standing at the back of the viewing, and he goes over to talk to him. We find out this man is named Luke, and he and Connor went out a few times, and they talk about the iguana. And they both make really shitty allusions to the fact that the iguana is a familiar, and Connor was a warlock. Like,
Yeah.
My favorite is Ambrose is like, oh, you're familiar with iguanas like that. And it's like, wow. If I weren't a warlock, I'd think you were trying to sell me something.
Well, to be fair, unless you were from that witching community, you wouldn't understand why there would be such an emphasis on that.
But that's the thing, he puts so much emphasis on it. He's trying to sell me something.
It's like, you can't have an iguana. We don't sell them here. We're a mortuary.
Like,
And I'm not sending you the dead iguana because Aunt Hilda sent it into a purse. Like, that's not. This is not where this is going.
This is definitely the witch hunter, though. Like, I 100% think this is the witch hunter.
Oh.
I don't know that. The dude seems...
I thought he was something else.
Well, we'll find out. I don't actually know. I'm just throwing things at the wall at this point.
He's claiming to just be a warlock, but I think he might be a vampire.
Honestly, that's entirely possible too.
Yeah.
Who fucking knows?
We do have to point out this scene, apart from having the subtext of like, oh, it's a familiar, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. There is also the Ambrose subtext of like, I'm hitting on you at a funeral.
Like, hey, how you doing?
of someone that you said you had a relationship with. It's so so bad.
It really is.
It's like, Ambrose, come on, dude.
Ambrose has no shame, and honestly, to a certain degree, I don't blame him. He is under house arrest. You know, he only has so many options here. I don't blame him.
Yeah. And also, like, where else would he meet new people?
It's gotta be at funerals.
He's gonna be at funerals, he's a mortician. Like, yeah, I get it, I can understand, but it's still just like, oh, that's too soon. Anyway.
A little bit. But then we see Wardwell humming as she like is putting something together, and we see Sabrina in class, and then we see time freeze, and Sabrina sees the dead little girl, and she goes to follow her because why wouldn't you? You know, the time freezes, you know about magic, and you're like, oh, a dead person. Let me go check that out.
Dead person. Yeah.
Why would you not be like, well, I'm just gonna sit here till this wraps up?
It's like, apart from that, I got an extra 20 minutes to finish my test. Booyah. Like,
Right.
what do you think about that?
But she follows the dead girl to a scrapbook with all of Daniel Webster's court cases in it. And he got all of these terrible people off, murderers and stuff. And then she like gets annoyed about it, which kind of to a degree annoys me because he did his job as a lawyer. Because the point of a lawyer is to like, the point of a lawyer is to argue about something until it's proven beyond a reasonable doubt that somebody did something.
Yeah.
Like, we find out later there's more to it, but, like, he did the job of a lawyer. And she's, like, annoyed about it. I'm like, I get that you're annoyed because these people were bad people, but he did the thing that he was supposed to do. You'd be just as mad if he didn't do it.
Yeah, like, he literally did his job of, like, getting these people off. And, yeah, those people are horrible and thingy, but they're still entitled to defense. But there was like one headline I realized: Webster talks, murderers walk. I'm like, I quite like that one. That was good.
That was a good one. Yeah, I like that one.
I like that one. But they all looked old. None of them looked like new. So clearly, at some point soon, he'd stopped. Unless, like all the houses, all the papers are also really old and treated.
They just look old. They come fresh off the press, and they're immediately put into a bath to age them. You know,
yep.
40,
to mix
50.
in with the aesthetic of green over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we cut to Sabrina again at night because they don't go anywhere during the day unless it's in the woods for some reason. She's at Webster's house and she's like, "You're fired. Why did you let all these awful people out?" And he's like, "Everyone is entitled to a defense." And she's like, "No, fuck you." And then we find out that Webster signed his name in a book. He sold his soul to be the best lawyer there ever was.
Yes.
Signed his name in a different book, but still to the devil. Yeah. And he was winning cases, but all of his cases were these like really fucked up, horrible cases, and he was a defense attorney. So he wasn't a prosecutor. He was a defense attorney, which means he was winning cases, but they were all fucked up cases.
Yeah, they were all basically ones pointed to him, like they got to him because he'd signed his name in the book. That was like the trade-off, the thing. And then he said basically, he also paid a price for this, for signing his name. The price being that one of these people that he managed to get off because he's doing his job and obviously magically enchanted now because of the book. This murderer walked out of the thing, walked back to Webster's house, and then killed his daughter.
Yep.
And the dude was like, after that, no, not doing anything. And he's like, yes, I'd understand why you'd stop doing that after that point.
Right, it makes perfect sense at that point.
Yeah. And then she's like, oh, okay, well, I guess you can keep lawyering for me then.
Well, I guess. And then we cut back to the courtroom that night, where Webster tries to get a jury of mortals and a change of venue because Sabrina's only half witch. She's only half bound by the laws of witches. And this is where I was like, okay, they're taking this whole, like, inverted language thing way too far because it's just all over the place.
Yeah.
And then it jumps from there to Ambrose in his room, and he hears a knock on the window, and he creeps over to it. And then Luke is in his room.
Yeah, that's why I think he's a vampire. So he opens the window after a tap on the window. Luke just appears in his room, and Ambrose is like, what are you doing here? And Luke says, you invited me.
Yeah.
Are you a vampire? And he doesn't really answer the question.
He's like, I'm a warlock like you. That doesn't mean you're not a vampire. You could be a vampire warlock.
Yeah. That's exactly my thing.
And then they fuck.
Yeah, then they fuck. That's it's almost instant. It's
Which, honestly, weird scene to put in the middle of a court case about a 16-year-old girl being accused of not being a good enough witch. Here's this dude hooking up with a guy he met at a funeral. Like,
yeah, like literally hours before.
Why is this here?
I think they're just trying to break up like the heavy lore dump that's coming in with the thing, but it's just so weird.
It's a very weird spot for it. So then we go back to the fucking courtroom where Blackwood mocks Webster by suggesting they use the old witch trial methods. They'll just tie Sabrina up and throw her in the river, and if she drowns, she's immortal. Yay! Or they'll look for a witch's mark.
She'll stand up in front of the entire coven, strip down, and then they'll look for a witch mark on her.
Yep.
And rightly, a lot of people are like, no.
Yeah, which I also do like to props on her. Zelda's like, it's kind of a fucked up thing. Like, you don't need to go through that. There are other options. We could take a plea deal or something. You don't need to be pawed at by a bunch of people.
Yeah, and I think one of the first times we see that Auntie actually cares about Sabrina, not just about the fact she's a witch or the fact that she's immortal. No, she's genuinely concerned about her as a person.
Yeah,
like,
and not just
you
also
not
not
need to strip down atheists.
Yeah, and it's also not just that she's a Spellman, because Zelda's very about the Spellman name.
And appearances, but this is nothing to do with that. Like, this is putting Sabrina above all that. I'm like, oh, there's some hope in that cold, witchy heart.
The courtroom scene ends for the night, and it goes back to the Spellman house, where they're discussing whether or not being looked over for a witch's mark is even like possible. Like, does she have a witch's mark? Is there one?
Yeah.
When Blackwood shows up and he's like, oh, the Dark Lord has a bargain for you. And he smarms around a little bit, and he's like, you can see your mortal friends once a year, but you have to go to the academy, and you have to do this, and you have to do this.
Yep.
And Zelda's like, oh, this is great. And Blackwood.
Like, yeah, and you're not going to get burned for like 333 years in the pit of the demon after when you die, whatever it is, and we get to have our powers back. And it's like, yeah, it sounds interesting. And then Faust walks out, and then immediately Webster's like, we got him on the ropes, boys.
We got him where we want him. And Zelda's like, wait, what? No, we'll just take this. And he's like, no. The devil is offering you a bargain. The devil doesn't bargain. He's the devil.
Like, he doesn't need to do this. Like, this is not... There's a reason why he wants you so badly.
So we're this close to winning.
Yeah, we're not doing it. I think at this point, we then move on to Harvey and Sabrina, right?
Not yet. We have another short scene of Ambrose waking up. Luca's not there.
In the full light of the morning, Ambrose rolls over after hitting his maniacally laughing alarm clock.
Very weird alarm clock.
Luke isn't there.
Yep.
Like,
but Luke did apparently carve his name and number into the ceiling.
What a vandal. Um, and my favourite thing is that Ambrose then gets up and is like tighty bitey, walks across to where the iguana is like, yeah, Spellman's still got it. I'm like, oh my god. It's just the best and worst thing ever.
And then he's like, oh, the iguana's dead. That sucks.
Yeah.
And then it just moves on.
Yeah.
It's, again, a really weird scene to put to edit where they put it.
It kind of feels like they like, oh, we haven't got Ambrose doing anything in this episode. Let's give him something really like small-ish to play with. It may come up a bit when he does. It comes up later on, like at the whole like thing with Luke, and like that's the thing that comes later. But it seems like, oh, we forgot to give him anything in this episode. We need to give him something to make it worth having him paid for this episode or something.
But even then, they're just editing it into odd places. Like,
yeah,
choose better spots to put these scenes.
They're just like, what are we gonna do? Roll the dice? Oh, it's an Ambrose scene.
But then we cut to Sabrina and Harvey in the woods. It's daylight for them again because they're in the woods. And Sabrina's like, listen, you're the only person I trust. That makes sense. I believe in you. You're gonna do the right thing, and you'll always tell me the truth. So I need you to look for a birthmark all over my body. To Harvey's credit, he doesn't go, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Okay. He's just
he hears it through, and when she takes like her jacket or a shirt or whatever it is off, and it's just left in her bra and her skirt, he's just like, okay, takes his jacket and his shirt off and is like, well, you know, show me yours or show you mine sort of thing. It's just like, it's this really cute kind of like he's trying to be the good boyfriend and support her in whatever craziness is going on and not be a complete pervert at the same time. Like,
exactly.
Fucking props. Like this is well written bit here. It's like, I like Harvey.
I have another note though about Harvey. His shirt comes unbuttoned so quickly.
Of course.
He undoes his cuffs and then just like pulls his shirt off. And I'm like, were you just walking around with your shirt undone? Like, were you just in the woods in a jacket with an undone button-up shirt? You're just like, I don't need to button it, it's fine. You might catch flashes of my abs.
Yeah, I need to see this like hunky front right here.
It's so fucking weird because he's just like, and off.
And done. So we have this like very interesting little scene where he basically runs his hands over her arms and over her back, and then they of course like dissolve into kissing because, you know, that's they're teenagers and they're half naked.
There was my personal thought was, you look with your eyes, not your hands there, buddy.
Yeah, there was like eyes up here, buddy. Sorry, hands up here, buddy. Like eyes can do the roaming.
I said look for a birthmark, not touch. But whatever.
But of course, they're half naked, lusty teenagers. I mean, sure, okay.
I'm not gonna knock them too hard for it. They're teenagers in love, but it was just like I really wanted Sabrina to be like, "Hey, I said look, not touch."
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. But we cut to school where Roz is sitting next to Susie, and she's angry, and Sabrina's like, "Oh, what's wrong? Like, what? Tell me what happened." And she's like, "Oh, the PTA decided that in 3 months they'll allow us to come present our case for the bluest eye." And Sabrina's like, 3 months? What? You're upset because 3 months? Like 3 months, that's nothing. And she's like, and Susie's like, that's what I said. She's like, yeah, but time for a secret, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Roz is going blind.
Yeah.
And in 3 months, she'll be blind.
She be blind. And it's not going to be, you know, she even gone down to counting how many books she could read in that time. Books are important to her. Everything like this is important to her.
Mm-hmm.
And you really feel for her. Like, oh, okay, this isn't just like this actually has an emotional investment for her. It's not just like overreacting to a thing and like just being, you know, justice for justice sake. Like this has a meaning for her. This isn't just like, you know, a one-off thing. It's like, oh no, Roz, I like her.
It is, honestly, it's very depressing because being able to read books is like, it's real nice. There's something about like reading a book, not like on a Kindle or an audiobook, but there's something very nice about like the tactile sensation of pages.
Yeah, because
don't know why, but
it brings in another sense to reading.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of people still read books, and not just listen to audiobooks. We listen to audiobooks and audio dramas and podcasts like these because we have very little time, but people who do manage to have the time to read enjoy the tactile sensation of books. It's another sense to bring about to add to the story. So
yeah, it's nice, and I get it. And we cut from this touching scene of these three friends hugging in front of a actual fireplace in a high school.
Of course, yeah.
To the mines, right? By the way, unattended fireplace in a high school.
Yeah, like what the hell? I went to a high school equivalent thing. There was no open fireplaces. If we had open fireplaces, people would die.
There should not be an open fireplace.
No,
People
not
are
with
stupid.
like hormonal teenagers.
Oh, it's such a bad idea. And then we cut to Harvey at the mines, and he puts on a hard hat, and he's like, "I'm gonna do it." And his brother's telling him like, "Hey, just stick by me. You don't actually have to do anything. I've got guys who can cover it. We'll just be down there. You stay next to me. We'll be out. Dad'll be whatever. You just need to go down there long enough to get dirt on your face, basically." But Harvey can't do it, and he freezes up. And then his brother's like, "You know what? Just go home. I'll be along. Like when I'm done, you go ahead and go home. It's fine. We'll try again later."
Tommy is the ideal older brother. He is understanding and supportive, and not like he doesn't berate him for the fact he can't go down there like all the other guys around them. Like he knows, like, you can't do it, just go home. It's not a problem, it's not a shame, it's not who you are, sort of thing. And like, major props to Tommy.
He is
Good on him.
Tommy and Harvey are the opposite of Zelda and Hilda.
Absolutely.
Like, entirely opposite. Tommy's entirely like the older brother is supportive rather than just like demeaning as Zelda would be. Like it's an interesting like, oh, look, here's siblings who are behaving in an ideal way, and then here are siblings who the older one murders the younger one and sticks her in the garden when she pisses her off.
In a very literal sense.
Yes. And then we go back to the Spellman mortuary where Sabrina says, "Oh, she can do the witch's mark exam. There's no mark. It's fine." And Zelda's like, "You don't have to do this." And Sabrina's like, "Listen, there are people facing way worse stuff right now that they can't actually do anything about. I can handle being looked at." Which I think it's very brave, if not naive, but it's sort of like being brave, but being like kind of foolishly brave. It's like, well, other people are facing worse stuff, and it's like, yeah, but this is not a hill to die on, Sabrina.
Yeah, like no, like taking strength from seeing other people going through tougher situations, like Roz, I think is probably the point of that scene there.
Yeah.
Like seeing her go through that is one thing, but yeah, the naivety comes in. It's like, it's still going to affect you. It's still going to be a big problem for you at the end of it. Like, I'm sorry, as a 16-year-old girl, I would not want to go stand up in front of a bunch of randos and take my clothing off to have them pour over me. That's still going to leave a mark. That's still going to be something you'll have to deal with.
Exactly.
And Ansy is pretty much along the lines of like, you still don't know why. There's no need to do this. There are other options. And Sabrina, unfortunately, has made up her mind.
And she's like, "Let's go." Which I do like this when she says that, because Hilda like hits the table and she's annoyed. She's like, it keeps getting worse for Sabrina. And she's like, she gets up and totters out of the room. Zilda's like, "Where are you going?"
She's like, "Oh, I'll catch up.
Don't wait for me."
And is it this part where we see her go up to the attic or her bedroom, whatever it is?
Yeah, this is the part where she gets that. But I like her line. Like her last line is like, "You're not the only one with secrets, Zelda." And I like that line because it's like, "Ooh, what secrets do you have, Hilda?"
Oh yes, it's. I think I mentioned it back in like episode 1 or episode 2. There's a bit where they're talking about secrets and lies, and Hilda gets like this really small look on her face. It's relating to this, and I was like, "Oh, I saw it this time." So she goes up to her room, and she opens this like trunk, and it's full of random stuff, witchy type stuff. And then she closes it, waves her hand over it in some sort of magical way, which is odd because they're not supposed to have magic anymore. Open up the case, and there's full of baby things in there.
I don't think they don't have any magic though, because Sabrina, she's not a full witch, but she can still do minor things. Because I think witches still have powers, but it's like really, really minor stuff, unless they're being blessed by the Dark Lord. Because even Sabrina, way back at the beginning, before the baptism and stuff, because they talk about how she'll get her actual powers after the baptism.
Yeah.
But all she can do in the early stuff is like she turns the radio on, she makes the lights flash. Like she doesn't have much in the way of actual power.
Yeah, but also Ambrose was talking about how she didn't get it, her powers would go away.
That's true, but
And
she hasn't chosen the path yet. She's still walking both sides of the street, as it were, in this case. Like she's still there, and the Dark Lord still wants her. So I don't think they're going to take her powers away entirely.
yeah, I don't think she'll lose them. Anyway, so we'll hand wave the Aunt Hilda having magic or for whatever reason. She waves her hand over and we find that there's a bunch of baby stuff in there. And there's a little like Peter Rabbit My First Year thing. I don't really know what it was.
It's one of those people buy them, they're baby journals. You describe things your baby does, and when they did them, like my baby set up on this date and my baby's foot and whatever. It's just like a record of stuff your baby did in the first year. Or first couple of years or whatever.
That's cute.
It's a thing. People do it.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't know anyone who had this done for them, but okay.
I don't either. I think my parents might have one for me that was never opened.
I didn't have one. I know it for sure. Deprived.
Oh,
anyway.
Right. I can't look at it and be like,
Oh, I remember these
this
things.
This means nothing to me.
I cannot relate to this, I'm afraid. Sorry. So we then go back to the courtroom, I think, at this point.
No, we get the scene of Harvey and his dad and Tommy,
yeah.
where he's drawing the goat man, and his dad comes in, and he's like, Harvey, you dumb son of a bitch. I mean, he doesn't sound like that, but he straight up is about to beat Harvey when Tommy comes in. Is like, get the fuck off of him. I'm not going to have I'm not going to have Harvey waste his life like... Well, you know what I was going to say.
You.
Like you.
For me, because he's also down the mines.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's again a wonderful scene of a brother standing up for his little brother against their father.
Mm-hmm.
I assume the mother is not a figure that's around.
I have to assume the mother's not around. I feel like she's got to be dead or like gone or something. Cause
yeah, I feel like she's had to been around here. Like she's probably going to get mentioned at some point. I don't know what the link or the reference is or anything, or whether it's just like she's just never going to be mentioned. Who knows? Anyway, so we move from this like, oh, this is what family is supposed to do for each other, stand up for each other, and we then have that exact thing happening in the courtroom.
In the courtroom, yep. Which, if you would like to describe this court scene.
Oh, jeez. So in this court scene, we have... Oh, did I miss the Aunt Zelda and Aunt Hilda up on the stand bit already?
Oh, when they were up on the stand together?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's the second time they're in there. Yeah,
I think so, yeah. I forgot what they did on the stand. I didn't make notes.
Oh, they just stood up there and went, yeah, she's mortal. Well, yeah, it's like, was she born with...
Oh,
yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
it was when he was trying to get the mortal jury to go on. Because they're like, well, you're midwives, and you helped Diane give birth to Sabrina, and Diane was immortal, so...
Yep.
Yeah, that was
anyway. So we get into this court scene, and like they're arguing the toss about something, and Sabrina's about to go take her clothes off in front of everyone, and we have coming from the villains, fresh from the villain school of entrances and timing, we have Aunt Hilda just like waddling into the thing. We hear her yelling "stop" from outside and stop, and she finally like throws open she kind of stumbles into them. She's only just fresh out of school. She probably didn't pass.
Yeah, tripped on something.
She comes in holding this piece of paper, and she gives it to Webster, and Webster's like, "Ooh." And what this essentially dissolves down to is we learn that Sabrina's mother and Aunt Hilda took her on after 2 days of being born or something.
Mm-hmm.
They took her to a church and had her baptized in the Catholic way, and they were like, "Oh, well, now there's I guess there's a bit of a confusion of who her soul belongs to, because it was promised to her in like before she was born, and the name went in the book 3 days after she was born, but they did this like Catholic thing, and basically Webster's like, there is no case.
This was a day before the your book, so fuck you.
It's like, fuck you, VM. And Faust is like, this is a shambles, and this is a shambles, terrible late theatrics or something, and like basically calls her scum. And Sabrina stands up and says, no, I think the devil's behavior is terrible. And then these two doors, like these trap doors on the ground in front of like the three, open with like a spout of fire around the edge, and they're like, well, I guess we've been called to the bar.
Yep, and Webster and Blackwood descend into this secret chambers, and the doors close over them. Yeah. And this scene is ridiculous because it's at one point Blackwood's like, "You make a mockery of this court." I'm like, "You guys already made a mockery of the court. Like, you keep saying dishonor in the court, and it's just
like this entire scene is a mockery."
Yeah, like everything. And then it cuts outside, I guess, but while the lawyers and Satan deliberate.
Yes, of course.
Zelda and Hilda are having an argument about the baptism, and Zelda's like, "It's disgusting. You went into a Catholic church."
You said with such disgust. It's hilarious.
And then Sabrina comes up, and she's like, "Listen, no more lies about my family, because, guys, you're both doing it. Fuck off."
Yeah, and at this point I went, oh, both her parents told her. Mm-hmm. That's mean. Like, they both literally went, oh, you're going to be bound to this. Oh, no, you're going to be bound to that. But they basically decided her fate without her letting choose it herself.
Exactly. I do have to wonder, like, maybe, again, I don't know. I haven't seen the whole series. But maybe the dad was like, yeah, I'm going to go sign her name in the Book of the Beast. But you go get her baptized before that, and we don't have to worry about it. Because even though her name's in the book, she's already been promised to God. Ha ha ha!
Yes, there's that. Because we haven't really met her parents, we don't really know how that dynamics worked out. Like, we know that there was a deal struck for Sabrina to be born. We know, and to be given to the demon, to the devil. We know that there was some weird thing that happened with them, and then they died, probably suspiciously, probably murdered. I'm going to go on a limb and say. And there is always this battle between she is part light, she is part dark. Whenever she does witch stuff, it's always night. Whenever she deals with her mortal friends, it's always day. There's always that very clear distinction. She's always in black and white, and various layers come off depending on what they want to show her as her true path being, even though basically going to go down the path of grey. I think not, probably going to go down, there's probably going to be something happening. She'll probably have to sign the book. That's my prediction. I haven't watched the last 2 episodes, I don't really know. Like, there'll be things happening, and it's this. Clearly, she has a destiny that the devil wants. The devil knows she is part mortal, and he allowed her to be born for a reason. He knows that she walks in the path of light and walks the path of dark. He probably knows a lot of this stuff going on. There's probably some great prophecy around who she is and what horrible or possibly great things. Like, this is a proper like battle for the soul, like, you know, Constantine kind of deal. What I'm feeling out of this exactly out of this like scene where they describe like you know, the various things going on between signing her names in various books. Yeah, there's that feeling, and I got it straight here in this scene.
I definitely agree. I think there's got to be something more to it. Again, don't actually know. Haven't finished it. Suppose we'll find out.
Nope. I don't.
But we jump back into the court where Sabrina is found, quote unquote, not guilty. And that she never made a promise to the devil, because she was already promised to God. But she has to attend the academy, and she has to go to Black Mass. And she can continue to see her friends, and she won't have to sign a name in the book. And the Spellman family gets their powers back, and I love the scene where lightning thunders, and the sisters turn young again, and Zelda leaps up, "Praise Satan, I'm young again."
Yeah, it's that over dramatic, but it's so good. It fits so well in this like cheesy mockery of whatever the hell this episode is. It's so good.
She doesn't miss a beat either. She's just like, "Praise Satan, I'm young again."
Yes, she's clearly devout.
Very. And then outside, everyone's going their separate ways, and Sabrina tries to invite Webster over to celebrate, and he's like, "No, I'm old, and it's late, and I have alcohol to drink."
Of course, yeah.
But let me tell you something. Nobody's ever beaten the devil. But you go to this school, and you learn as much as you can about the devil, and maybe, just maybe, you can beat the devil. Which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's probably some foreshadowing, huh?
Yeah, probably just a little bit. She's probably going to beat the devil.
Probably gonna be the devil. Although interestingly enough, as this is a point where I realised that those three strong, powerful things that she said earlier, like I will not sign my name, I will not go to the academy, I will not what path? No, I can't remember what the other one was. Oh, I will not stand trial. She stood trial. she is going to the academy. All she's got to do is sign the name of the book now. Like, those are three very powerful things that she said there, like right in the middle of this episode. Like, this is something she's not going to do, and she took a big stand on it and make a big point of it. And at the end of the episode, she still did them.
Yep, she still has to do those two things, and
yep.
we cut to later, where Hilda's reading a romance novel, which I love the fact she reads romance novels.
Yeah.
A phone rings, and then Zelda comes into their shared room, and she's like, "Oh, that was Father Blackwood. You've been excommunicated from the Church of Night. Satan doesn't like you anymore." And then Hilda's just like, "Wait, what?" And it cuts away.
He's like, "Wait, what? What do I do now?" And it's like, "Don't know."
Apparently, she's still a witch. She's just not part of the church or the coven, I guess.
Not part of the coven, yeah.
So she's like, she's a witch alone. So if there's witch hunters around, there's no one to protect her.
She and Sabrina are in danger from that. Yeah.
And then
Inconvenience. It's like you think the witch hunter is like shagging Ambrose upstairs.
I think that's what he is, but I don't know. I don't know yet. And then we see Blackwood and Wardwell have another chat about how Blackwood's gonna break Sabrina, and Wardwell's like, "What is it with you men? And you're very, it's always got to be forced with you." And she's like, "The only way to really break Sabrina is to get her away from all of her friends, and I know how to do that."
Yeah.
And we see Roz looking in a mirror at school, and then her eyes turn black, and then Sabrina comes in. She's like, "Hey, Roz, come with me. Are you okay? Follow me. Don't care. Let's go." And leads her to the library again with the open, unattended fireplace surrounded by paper, where Mrs. Wardwell is running the new secret book club where they will only read banned books.
Because she had a list of books they should get through. Like, oh no. She's like, "I have one tailored for each of you." And then looks at Susie.
I feel so bad for whatever going to happen to Susie.
Yeah, there's clearly something is going to be happening in it. Like, we can see where this is potentially going, and they're like, "No, leave them alone, you bitch." No.
Fuck you, Wardwell.
And I think that is the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm. That's where it cuts.
Yeah.
It ends on that point. So, we're running a little bit long, so let me just ask you, how would you rate this episode?
I'm gonna say 2.5. It was not a terrible watch. It's just not a good one. There are bits in here that are really good. Harvey's story is really good in here. But the comedy, if you decide to take the courtroom as a comedy, is hilarious. But it's not their greatest episode. Like, it didn't flow very well. There was lots of random cutting between. They basically tried to cram too much into this to break up the heaviness of all the law dump on the witch's law into that courtroom scene, and they broke it up in the most random ways. For example, Ambrose, like, that was the most random insertion of stuff in here. Like, he was literally on his own, not really investing in the rest of this the episode, apart from when he brings the iguana into the room in the morning. Like, I assume Luke is probably setting something up, but the dialogue in this was not great. It really wasn't. Some of the acting in this, I have to point it out, was really kind of, they over enunciated some names when they were talking to basically everyone. It happened a lot, and it began to really annoy me when I picked it up that it was happening. We had 4 entrances from the villain's school of turning up at just the right time, which was just effing terrible. Really annoyed me. There were so many things in the episode which weren't good, and that's why I'm putting it down at the 2.5 broomstick level, because it's just not a good episode. It's hilarious to watch if you treat it as a comedy, but otherwise... What about you, Drew?
I'm gonna say 2. Just a flat 2, and I say, yeah, I agree. The writing on this was not their best. The courtroom was more slapsticky than serious. Yeah. And considering the tone they were clearly trying to take with it, they should have made it more serious. They cut the courtroom scenes up so weirdly that it became almost dizzying to fucking follow. With all these weird little cuts in between, and like, "Oh, let's go look at this. Let's go look at this." Like, you need to calm down and just show me this very serious scene.
Yeah, I mean, they could have literally taken this entire episode and dedicated it to the whole lore dump around witch lore. We could have learned about it more intently. We could have dealt with going, we basically could have treated it more seriously. We could have made the church darker. We could have said the dishonors, well, not call them dishonor in the first place. The honors dark and more creepy. Like, there are so many things in here they could have treated much better. They missed an opportunity to make this a fucking amazing episode.
I think if they'd cut all the B story out of this episode and just gave us 1 hour long court scene where where Sabrina and Webster are like looking through witch law, like even just like treating it like a police procedural, I think would have made it way better. Focusing mostly on Sabrina and the witches, like her trial, and moving way away from everything else that happened in this. Everything else could have happened in minor flashes in other episodes. You could have been building this stuff up for a while, and just like saved more room in this episode for something else.
Yeah, so they missed an opportunity on this, and it kind of made me sad. Like, say if they broke their, obviously they had a rhythm, a rhyme, like a way they do episodes, like the manufactured way that you can do episodes. Like, here's the beginning, here's the end, here's the thing, here's the B-roll. Let's cut those in. Like, they don't need to do that. They're on Netflix. Netflix doesn't give a fuck. They want good stuff. So this episode they could have just broken the norm and gone, let's do this as a proper court scene. Let's learn stuff. Let's let's hire a writer from whatever the hell you've ended up calling this episode.
Law and Order, Satan Victim Unit.
Yeah, they could have done something like that and just said, dude, we need some help on this, and gone to them, got them to do this episode. Like, it would have been so much better, I feel. So that's why. I think so.
Yeah. But there were just a lot of little things in this episode that really kind of dragged this one down. I was a little bit bored, honestly, through parts of this episode. I was like, okay, we've got to be near the end. Oh no, I'm still 20 minutes away. Okay. But yeah, 2. I
promise you the other episodes are definitely better.
I hope so.
I would not have suggested it if they were all this bad. I can't deal with another Lost in Space.
I don't know. Lost in Space gave us a lot of material to make fun of.
Oh, it did, but I don't want to make fun of this. I want this to be good. I'm trying.
I mean, we could have had 3-hour episodes for Lost in Space that was just us insulting Lost in Space.
Yeah, we could have. But I think this we can treat much better.
Yeah.
I guess that's it then. We done our bits.
Yeah, that's everything.
All right.
So if you start the ending. You've always started the end, Valanda.
Do I? Okay. Oh, right. You can find me on Twitter at volley_Londa. You can also find the podcast I'm on, The Lucky Die. Comes out every Monday. We'll come up tomorrow with a new episode. Part of the regular series, not a special. It's the holidays episode, so one of those regular ones coming up. I think The White Vault comes out this Tuesday because they had a bit of a break over the season holidays. And I think that's probably everywhere I'm appearing this week. It's mostly trying to get a bunch of cool stuff and a bunch of games done. So I think that's pretty much it. Drew.
I have been Drew Tillman, and you can find me on Twitter at NotThatDrew. You can find me on Taking Initiative, where I currently play Krusk. And I think episode 50 comes out Monday, so tomorrow. Ooh. I think so. The timing seems right to me. No research ever. So that pretty sure comes out on Monday. Things are happening. Enjoy. You can also find me on. That's it.
That's it for you, Monday. That's it.
That's currently it for now. Yeah. Anyway, this was fun. I enjoyed talking about Sabrina the Teenage Witch, despite that it's not Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Mm-hmm.
It's not. That's why I called the first episode. I finally actually released up to the RSS feed, and it's called ... bracket not the Teenage Witch.
Not the Teenage Witch. She is the Teenage Witch. But we will see you all again next Sunday for episode 4. I can't wait. I want to watch more. I'm enjoying it enough that I'm going to go watch it probably right now.
Awesome. Cool. All right. I guess we will see you guys next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.